Hello everyone and Happy New Year. Because of the weather, no students were in the building this week, but I came in and did a little bit of work that I want to share with you. I did some work on the Duramax diesel, a little bit on the chainsaw, and there's something with the Z1R motorcycle that I'm going to share with you as well. On the truck here with the intake gasket leak that the students were working on before the Christmas break, we found that one of the bolts in the rear was giving us a little bit of trouble going in, which is going to screw up our torque spec. So I'm going to have the students pull the intake back off, find out what's going on with that hole. I'm going to tap down it if necessary or replace the bolt, and then we'll get this back together. So hopefully next week we'll have this running. So thank you guys for tuning in. Next week we'll have a full episode for you. We got about a foot of snow the other day, so school's been shut down for the first part of the week, but I wanted to come in today and get a little bit of work done so I'd have some footage to share with you. So I'm here today working on the Duramax diesel a little bit. I've got the alignment dowels in place and the mating surface on the block all cleaned up and ready to go. What I'm going to do first though, before I set the head on it, is I want to get number one cylinder on top dead center so that when we go to do the valve adjustments, things will go a lot smoother. So you're going to see me do that first. I want to get cylinder one at top dead center compression stroke before I put the other head on. So I've got two of the push rods in place, and this one is a little bit taller than the exhaust, which is here. So I know that the intake valve would be open if it were all together. So we're about to be on compression stroke. So what I'm going to do is rotate the engine around until we get that one will drop down. And then I know the intake valve is shut. And then the way I'm going to know that it's at number one, or at top dead center rather, is cylinder 4 is the companion cylinder on the other side. So I know when that one's at top dead center, it'll be on exhaust stroke. And I know that number one is going to be on the compression stroke. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate this around until cylinder 4 is at top dead center. I know you can't see that from there, but it is now at top dead center 4. Now when we're ready to adjust the valves, I can start with number one and then go through the sequence in the firing order, and we know that all of them are going to be correct. Now with all the prep work done, we'll go ahead and set the cylinder head in place. With the head and studs in place, it's time to lubricate the washers and nuts, get this head torqued down. As you saw me do before, I'm putting a liberal amount of the lubricant around the nut, but I'm also going to put some inside so that as it goes down onto the stud, it'll wind itself around the threads and lubricate those as well. And with the last nut lubricated, I'll get it onto that stud. I'll use a socket to run them down like a driver, and then we'll get busy getting the torque to 125 pound-feet of torque. With both heads torqued down on the Duramax and number one cylinder at top dead center, I can clean off the push rods and get those put in place. Then it'll be time to put on the rocker arm shaft. With the back half of the Z1R cleaned and painted, it's now time to start putting some of those components back together. I want to show you something that I had Eric do during the disassembly that's going to make this a lot easier and also better. I had Eric take the hardware from the bike and put it into a box in the order that he removed it from. You can see some of the stuff is in pretty bad shape, it's rusted, corroded, the rubber here is torn. So what we're going to do is we're going to replace it all with brand new hardware. That's definitely going to make the bike look a lot nicer when it's all back together. So I've got everything in order here. We are going to have to drill the holes in the washers a little bit bigger so that they fit the bolts correctly, so that when we put all this back together, we're going to have all new hardware, but this will let Eric know where these bolts have to go. This is the stihl 084 saw that I showed you a couple of weeks ago that was in need of a piston and a muffler. I've got the new piston and ring assembly in. Removing the old piston now and getting ready to put the new one in place. I've got the wrist pin keeper removed. Now I'm pushing the pin out, and that's going to remove the piston. With the pin pushed back, I got the piston off. You can see here there's quite a bit of scoring on the exhaust side of the piston. The upper needle bearing looks really good, so we're going to reuse that. So with our new piston and pin assembly, we're ready to put the piston back in. Here I've got the piston and pin in place along with the clips. It's a good idea to make sure you put rags around the base of the piston so that that clip, when you put it in place, doesn't fall down into the crankcase or anywhere else in the engine, because then you'll be hating life trying to get that back out of there. The only thing left to do now is get the piston rings installed, get that cylinder honed and put in place and bolted down. Then we'll figure out what we're going to do about that missing muffler. Next time on Bulldog Builds, with the push rods in place on our Duramax, we'll install the rocker arm shaft and get the valves adjusted. And we'll find out what's going on with that rear hole on that F-150 so we can get the intake back on. And we'll get the cylinder honed and reinstalled on our 084 saw. See you next week.